LEDs, how low it is, you want it to be not up in the red, but you want to get a good yellow. So that may mean that you have to pull your master down temporarily, but we're going to go to the master gain up here, and we're going to gain this up, and we're going to watch to see what our levels are doing over here. As we turn this up, it starts to get better. Check, 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 check. Here we go. So now I'm running into it. Now the compressor's on. I'm gonna turn the compressor off to start with. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, so this is a good level where I'm able to get at least one yellow bar on it. So I'm not amplifying air. Because if your levels are down here just in the 2 green and not flickering any of the yellow, what ends up happening is when you start boosting the signal up over here, you're also amplifying a no signal, which is air, and that's where you get the hiss in the system. So that's the first thing, is being able to do that. Now the next thing is, we were talking about before, is I use the pan knob, which is, am I gonna go to the left or am I gonna go to the right? Now in your system here, this may be an issue, because I noticed when I went left, no, there you are. I actually am louder on that side than I am on this side. So I don't know why, but that is. But for your TV mix, you'll want to be able to pan it. What that's going to tell me is we're not going to hard pan left or right. We'll do like a slight pan left or a slight pan right.
And you said that matters with where we are on the stage?
Well, it doesn't matter, but it gives the listener an opportunity to kind of visualize where everything is. So it separates.
If you're looking at the stage, you hear piano when you look
in the actual orientation where things are. So if you're looking at it on TV, it seems natural, because some of the people used to do like surround sound systems, and the pastor would be speaking here and you'd hear the sound behind him, and that's just weird. Right. That's not normal. That's not natural. That's not the way we want to do it. So we want to make sure everything comes through.
Let me interject one problem we have with video. A lot of times people are listening with just one earbud. So we've had instances where it's like, can't hear Wilson. And like I listen to it, I'll turn it on and like, I got Wilson all day long. Am I right? I don't have him in the left.
I got nothing in my left.
I got nothing in my left.
Now,
they just have the left earbud in, trying to listen like while their spouse is driving.
Oh, okay.
And they hear nothing.
So this is not like the in-ear monitoring
Yeah,
system.
yeah,
This is like somebody on the live stream.
Gotcha.
On their phone.
We have a lot of seniors that are still viewing from home.
Right.
And that's what they'll...
So what you'll end up having to do is, like I was saying, you'll have to not hard pan left or right. So if you're moving this, maybe you don't want to go, beyond 9 or 3. Maybe those are like your far left, your far right. You can see how the lights light up. So if I'm panning one way or the other, maybe don't go any further than that if you're having that issue. I mean, you can also tell them put both ears in.
And I don't want to push you too far off track, but that is something that we're going to have to get specific on, because there have been times where like or there's some input that no matter what you do, I cannot get it to pan either way. It's like I just got a left, and that's all I ever have.
Okay. Well, now that could be if the inputs are set as stereo. For instance, let's say the acoustic guitar has 2 outputs on it. Now, most guitars don't, but some do. Keyboard's a better example. Keyboard has a left and a right output. So if you have them plugged into 2 separate channels and you're adjusting, say this is the left channel and that's the right channel, and you're adjusting this channel and you're turning if you go right, you're going to drop it out.
If we're just running out of one channel, you can adjust the other channel all you want to, and you're never going to hear it.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense, because I don't think we're running stereo out. We probably should be, but we're just running a single.
Yeah. So
out.
when I am running drums, or I'm running keyboards that have a unique left and right output, I generally will pan them hard left and hard right like that, because that's going to cover the whole gap, but it's going to give you more space to the instrument. They allow that in the programs to be able to pan hard left and right. So if you had a synthesizer on stage, I would do that.
So do you have other left and rights on?
I have to go look. Y'all keep talking. I'll go look.
Yeah. So if it has a left and right, that would be where we would go. So the first thing is we're gonna go from basics. So we're gonna take the mic. We want to be able to get the levels of where it's in the same area. The other thing is teach your people miking technique. You should, if you hold the mic like this, you should be no further away than this, because you hear what happens as soon as you step out there. So you want to be able to keep it in about this zone, so you're getting the mic. A lot of people want to do up on the mic with this. That's not necessary, but at least stay in this zone. That makes a lot of difference, because it'll make the sound be consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah, about a thumb away from it. So you get the fullness of your body.
Somebody's singing a solo with the
Oh,
mic
it
down
happens
here.
all
It's
the
like,
time.
I can't get.
Yeah,
or you
yeah,
get feedback.
yeah.
Real bad problem, and that's the easy explanation is if you do it right here, we're less likely to get feedback. You know, and that's what we want to be
You
able
gotta
to do.
you gotta crank something up, either the volume or the gain, because they're holding it down here, and you
Yeah.
can't teach them.
Right.
And you explain to them that if they're right here and then they want to hear themselves in the monitors, that this microphone is going to pick up the monitor level just as much as you're hearing it, so it's going to create that feedback loop. So if
Right.
they're right here, the monitor level is coming to the end of the mic, not the top of the mic. But if you're down like this thing picks up in this circle, so it's going to pick up everything in there. Plus, you heard my voice dramatically drop off when I bring the mic down. But
Absolutely.
it's, you know, a lot better when I'm up here. So that's just a miking technique that will help everybody as we set things up. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set the gain structuring of it. And then I'm going to set the pan. Like I said, I'll actually use the way the layout is on the stage to try to set things that way. If I'm doing a stereo instrument, like a keyboard, like Tom 1 and Tom 2, I generally will pan hard left and right because I want to see the separation of those instruments. So most of the time, things like your kick drum and your bass guitar, that's kind of the meat of the music. I put that dead in the center, and then everything else is kind of panned left and right. Maybe the lead vocalist, but most of the time when I'm doing a lead vocal, I'll actually double the vocals with some delay or reverb or something of that nature, and I'll run them stereo and I'll pan them out a little bit, which creates a real fatness in the vocal sound, because we'll do that in just a minute. Okay, so the next thing after we move from there is our gates and our compressors and our low cut. So the low cut, let me select my channel and I hit the low cut. If we go back to the home screen, you can actually see what's happening right there. And the further to the right that I get, did you notice what happened to my voice? Now, if I'm singing with 6 other people and you hear all that low end in my voice, it's gonna sound like mud. It's just going to sound like mud, and that's where most people leave the vocals, and then you got 6 people singing, and all you hear, I mean, because that's really what's there. But notice what happens. My voice really gets cleaned up a lot as I begin to move this, and there's a point where that boominess in my voice, right along in through here, notice the boominess disappears in my voice. Now, if I've got 5 or 6 vocalists singing up here, they're not going to run all over each other because that's not the primary thing. My voice has a lot of low end to it, but by me rolling off the majority of that low end, I'm not going to fight the kick drum, I'm not going to fight the bass guitar, I'm not going to fight the bottom end of the keyboard, I'm not going to be sitting there with the acoustic guitar. My voice is going to sit on top of that, so if I gain myself up because I need to be heard, I'm actually sitting in an area where there's not a lot of competition of other things. Super important to know. That is exceptionally important. You should never run this any lower than 100, 120. Most of the time, I'm closer to 200 with
On
it.
vocals.
On the vocals, right, on the vocals. And you can look, should put my glasses back on, but you can look and see that when you're actually in the view, it'll show you what the numbers are. Does that say low cut around 200?
Yeah, 201.
Yeah, so that's generally where I run for my stuff, because that keeps it out of my other instruments range. That's just a matter of whenever you push the button. But I mean, there's a huge difference in that, but it really cleans up the vocal mix.
Can you pass him the mic? Just to listen to him talk?
Yeah.
Check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
You can definitely tell when I turn it on and when I
Yeah.
turn it off.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just
Is-
cleans your
is it-
vocals
is it
up.
better when it's on? When the low cut is
Yeah.
on?
It will
Yeah,
be
for
when
sure.
you're singing with music.
Right.
That's the point. So this is what I was saying with my music guys. When he talks and he's the only one talking, I turn that off so he sounds somewhat normal. But then when you start singing
Four,
again,
5.
But
Well,
even
you-
that's you're way too low. There's
That's
way
low?
too much low.
Yeah.
yeah.
To just you
So
talking.
if you were just talking, I would have you right there. Listen to the difference.
Gotcha. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
That's where I would set it if you were just having a conversation. But then when I'm mixing music, I'm bringing it up to 200. Most of the time I'm at 200.
2, 3, 4, 5. You can tell there.
It really thins it out, but it takes the bottom out so that when there are 5 or 6 of you singing, I can just bring your vocal up, because
Gotcha.
when you're making the mix, you're not hearing all that low mud anyway. You're just
Right.
hearing the clarity of your words over the music. So that's why
Gotcha.
that's why it's important that we cut that out. So that's what the low cut is. Okay, now this is real meat and potato stuff right here. I'm gonna take a minute to explain what the gate is and what the compressor is. Okay, the gate keeps things out or lets things in. That's what a gate does. You know, let the dog out, keep the dog in. Okay, so what we're going to use it for is to allow sounds to come in or to prevent sounds from coming out. I'll use this example on the drum kit. Now y'all have an electronic kit, so it really is not going to be effective on that. But for most drummers that are playing an acoustic kit, what happens is they hit tom 1 and they'll have a mic on it, and they'll have a mic on tom 2, and then they'll have overhead. So when they hit tom 1, every mic on the kit picks it up.
Right.
But which mic do I want to pick it up? The one that's on tom 1. That's the only mic I want to pick that up. Maybe a little bit of the overheads, but I'm going to EQ them so that tom 1's really not going to be in there. Maybe I get the batter head strike as it hits the drum, but I don't want the big boominess coming out of on my overheads. I really want it for my cymbals, so I just want tom 1's mic to pick it up. Well, what am I going to do with tom 2 and tom 3 and the snare drum and the other overheads? We're going to use a gate. We're going to set a gate that says if the sound is not direct on one of these other microphones, I don't want the sound to be recorded. So we're going to use the gate. We're going to turn those things off. Now I'm going to give this example. Do we have, by any chance, another wireless mic that we could turn on that could function up here? Okay, yeah, if we can get that on, I'll show you. Well, I'll use the example right here, but then we can set up a real life example. So when I select this channel and I hit the view button, it's going to pull this up. You'll notice this blue line is bouncing up and down, okay? That means the level is coming to right here. Now, when I turn the gate on, you'll notice that nothing happens until I begin turning the knob this way. Now, I'm gonna make an example because my level is staying right around in here. Watch what happens when I move this, the gate beyond where my blue line is. Watch what happens here. In just a second, it's going to close the door on me.
Oh yeah.
And you notice that all of a sudden you can't hear me anymore. Now I'm still talking, you still see my blue line, but I closed the gate. So if you think of this as tom 2 and I'm hitting tom 1, I can set tom 1 to be like this so that when I hit tom 1, it hears it, but I set tom 2 to be like this. So now I'm hitting tom 1, but I don't hear anything on tom 2's mic. But then when I hit tom 2's mic, it's going to do it. And once you get that up, we can use this.
3, 3, 3, 3. That's a solo one right there.
Perfect. All right. So we're going to set the gate here while we're using my mic. So let's turn it up so we get a good level. Go ahead. Talk on it.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay. Here we got good levels. Now let's do this. So I'm going to set it like this. So these are going to be like 2 drum mics. This is like 2 drum mics. This is tom 2. This will be tom 1. So what I want is tom 1's mic to be hit. But you notice what's happening over here. I'm still picking it up. Check, check, check. See, this mic is still picking up a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this mic because I don't want it to hear my signal. Now you'll notice as I'm looking at it, you can see the blue line right here. Now until these red lines come down, the gate is still open. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this knob and the gate is going to close. And now all of a sudden, well, let me do this hold and release. And I'm going to have to explain what these things are, but I will explain them in just a second after I finish the example. Okay, so what's going to happen now is the attack and the hold. There we go. Now notice see how it goes up and down, how it's closed, the gate's staying closed most of the time with this mic. But then if I go over here and I hit this one, notice how it's open now, but this mic would be closed. So what I'm doing is I'm saying when I'm on this mic, I want that gate to stay closed because it is. But then when I hit this drum, boom, 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 now I hit this drum, see what happens? The gate opens, the blue dot is above the gate closing, so it turns the mic on. But as soon as I stop talking and I go back and I hit this one, you notice what happens? It
What if we
closes the
talk
gate.
at the same time?
They'll both be open. They'll both be open. Yeah, because you're directly talking in that mic. It's not trying to pick me up. So that way, if you did a drum solo and you're hitting both toms at the same time, both mics are going to be open. The thing is that when I hit tom 1, I just don't want tom 2's mic to pick me up.
Do you want this on singer's mic? Do you want to have this on?
So we're gonna cover that example. Good deal. I was giving a drastic example so that it makes sense. So
We don't allow Blake to do drum solos.
But this is what happens vocally. Okay, kids' productions for Easter and Christmas are the worst. Everybody has a lapel mic.
Yep.
Okay, and they turn the lapel mic up loud enough to be heard, but then you're talking and they're supposed to be standing still, but now this mic was turned up so loud, this mic is picking up you talking. So what I want to do is I want to gate this one so that when you're talking, my mic is not picking you up, because if we're far enough apart, it's going to get this weird flangey kind of sound, or it's going to feedback. So we're going to use the gate there with the same type of a scenario. We're going to close. This is the threshold. This is when I need that gate to be closed. And you'll notice right here that gate is solidly closed on my mic. Now if I go over here, I don't have the gate on, but now I'm going to turn the gate on, and I can set the gate right here, and we'll set the hold and the release to be very fast, so that as soon as I am not talking, and this mic's over here, and
Hello.
so see, I might even carry that a little further.
Hello.
Now the gate's staying closed. But as soon as I talk, my mic is open.
Right.
But as soon as you talk, my gate's closed.
Right. So if you go back to,
You look at yours.
yeah, okay, I see
Now
that.
you stop talking and I'll start talking. See, your gate's closed. So what I'm doing is I'm only having on microphones that I want on, but I'm allowing the board to do it instead of me having to go mute, unmute, and you miss somebody. So this is what happens. You got 6 singers that are up there singing, they're done, and somebody's gonna sing a solo and they forget to mute their mic, no problem. Because you've set the gates, as soon as they set the mic down, it cuts themselves off. The gate closes and the mics are now cut off.
All right.
So unless somebody actually comes up and grabs the mic and picks it up, because this is us. We have what we call our solo 2, which is the announcement mic. And I used to just mute and unmute the announcement mic. But now we set a gate and we leave it on. That way he never walks up there and grabs the mic and starts talking.
And everybody goes,
and the sound goes.
Is this thing
That's
on?
what exactly
Is it
what happened.
working?
And we're on
Oh,
TV and it looks like we're a bunch of hicks up there. You know, don't tap
much of
it. Is the mic on? You know, just pick it up and start talking. So by us leaving the gates, we tell our ministers the mic is on.
Right.
When you pick it up, it's going to be hot. And now they don't worry about it anymore.
Don't talk if you don't mean it.
Yeah, you don't want to be heard. That's right. That's right.
All right.
Still be
Let me slow you down and ask a.
You do your
I'm this close to understanding the concept, but I'm not understanding the difference between gain and gate. Like, it sounds to me like we're just trying to make sure it doesn't pick up when I'm next to it. Like, what's
That basically is what a gate is. So just remember, the gate either keeps sound out or it lets sound in.
Okay. Well, what's the difference in that? Like, I get that it's not going to pick me up if you set the gate properly and I'm just next to it. But
Right.
what's the difference in that and me just adjusting the gain so it's not really trying to amplify every little sound it hears?
Well, the problem is that you might need that louder for the TV recording or for the house level. And if you're sitting here writing this, then that's a problem. But that's a great segue into compressors.
Okay.
The compressor is now going to answer the question that you're asking. How do I make loud people softer and soft people louder without having to ride the volume?
So before we do that, because you set the gain on this one, can we set the gain on that one?
Sure, check. So the
Gain is the very first signal that comes in the
Exactly, and this is where we want the gain to get to that, at least that first light. Check. So once I get it to where I'm gonna sing it, like I said, I'm gonna be about right here off of it, and I'm pretty consistently going there.
Red is about right too.
Yeah, let's bump you up just a.
1, 2, 3,
Yeah,
4,
there you go.
5.
So you just want to be able to flick into that. Just the same thing here. I just want to be able to flip that yellow a little bit. Now I'm a good level for both of these mics. And we should be fairly consistent. But now here's the thing. So in the sound check, you come in and you sound guys grab the mics and you set them all consistently with your own voice. And then they get in there, and I bet you have a big voice when you sing. And you got little Susie Snowflake over there that sings like this. But she sounds great, but you can't ever get her heard. Right. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a compressor to take loud people and bring them down, but we're also going to use a gain structuring to take people that are soft and bring them up. Now that's an audio trick not most people will teach you, but I'm going to show you this, because what I want to do is I want to create a dynamic range where I can take 6 vocalists and keep them in this range. So for the TV sound, it sounds consistent and the vocals sound blended. Because like what I listened to just a second ago, I heard a lady just like sticking out a lot. So if we set this correctly, even if she gets louder or someone else gets softer, unless they stop singing, it should keep the vocals in the consistent channel that we want, which is no louder than about, maybe 3 dB and no softer than -10. So that's going to be our channel where our vocals sit. Okay, so let's go through this. So this is how we do this. The other thing you can notice about the gate is that light will go red as soon as I stop talking. That's how you know that it's actually gating. So that needs to be on, and that will be there. Now again, if you click the view, you can get a representation over there. See how it does that?
Where's view at?
View is right next to it.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so when you press that, it's gonna pull it up in the window so you can actually see it. Okay, now let's talk about compression. Well, actually, let me go over some of the controls real quick on the gate, because this was something I didn't elaborate on that I really need to. Okay, the knob, you just have one knob right here. This one knob
I'll make a video.
will actually create the threshold at what point you want the gate to open or at what point you want the gate to close. So I want to make sure that when I'm talking and when I'm singing that I'm above that line that's right there, because if I move it too far, then I cut myself off. And if I move it and if I move it way down here, it's not gating. It stays open. So I have to find that sweet spot. So I look kind of where my voice goes to the top when I'm talking, and when I kind of tail off my words, I look where it is, and then I gradually start moving that over until I'm getting it so that it's allowing me to speak without cutting my words off. Because you can also use this, y'all have an electronic drum kit, so this doesn't apply. But if you ever listen to like slow jams from the 70s, you know, and they used to use a lot of reverb on the toms. I love it. It's like doom, doom, like Journey, Faithfully, you know, that doom, doom, doom. Okay, so they wanted the gate to stay open after they hit the drum for a little bit of time, and then add reverb to it so you get this big spacious tom hit. Well, then if you're doing, you know, Vogue or something, doom, 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 you don't want it to stay open, so you want to set a gate so it goes doom, doom, doom. So you can get the doom by using the release button. I can leave the release and the hold open longer to allow more sound to go out before it cuts it off. And if I'm doing a fast song, I may want a really quick release and a really quick hold so that the toms don't run over each other. So if somebody's using like a you know, they're playing a lot of the toms is the basic rhythm of the song. You don't want the gate to stay open because then everything's just running all over. Yeah, it gets real muddy. So you want to set the gates pretty quick so that as soon as he hits a tom, the gate closes. So you can get a doom by leaving the gate open, or doom by cutting the gate off really quick. The release button is what indicates how long that stays open. So you'll notice if I bring it over here and I use the hold, I use those two in conjunction, which will say, I want you to open the gate and hold it open for a little bit longer, even after I quit speaking. See how it didn't close super fast? So that allows, like, if you hit the cymbal shines for a little while. It rings out, right? So you want it to get all that ring out, so you might set the gate, but you might set the hold time a little bit longer on your overheads to allow the cymbal to completely shine out, or if you're doing a cymbal swell or something. So these two right here are being able to make it to taste. This is it's shaping the sound is what you're doing. So you say, do I want the sound to stay out there longer, or do I need to cut it off faster? So your hold time is just how long the gate's going to stay open after the sound has stopped its origin. So if I go, hey, you know, you'll see how quick, how fast, or how slow that is. So watch it. So like where I have now, hey. See how slow it was? But if I set the release and the hold time down as soon as I stop talking, and that thing flies to the bottom. See? So that's the difference in having it ring out or cut off.
Now, I think one sounds better when you're just speaking, but is something, is there just like a rule of thumb for when you're singing?
Yeah, if you're singing, traditionally speaking, if I'm singing, I'm going to be on my mic the whole time with some sort of something. So I don't want the gate to close on me. So I'm going to set my hold time about 50% and my range time at about 50%. Well, my release time, I meant to say, at about 50%. So that'll just be, as I stop, now I put my mic down, it's not going to pick me up anymore. But if I pick it up, I want it to open quickly. So the attack, which is this one right here, I want it to operate quickly, because watch what happens.
How quick it opens, right?
Exactly. It's how quick the gate's going to apply. So if I set the gate way over here, and it's down there, and then I come in, it may not open before, it may cut the first sibilance of a word off, because the gate may not, it's opening as I start speaking. But with it on the attack really fast, it's almost like it's anticipating that I'm going to be speaking as soon as I start to bring the words in. So I leave the attack over really quick, and then if I need to shape the sound, I'll use the hold and the release. Okay. Does that make sense for the most part? All right, so now the compressor. This is the sound man's greatest tool is the compression. So now what we're doing, you'll notice if I use this, watch what happens. Notice how the gate went this way, but the compressor comes down this way. See how it does like this? But you notice how my voice gets softer as I bring it down. And the red, just like when the gate is closed, what this is doing is pushing the sound level down. So as I bring it down, you notice I can still get loud as I want to right here, but it's not coming out of the system any louder.
Gotcha.
But I can bring it up right here and I can get a little bit more of my volume. But if I still get really loud, I'm staying consistent. Or if I open it up way up here, this may be where you want to be, but I get really, really loud, you want it to shut it down. Now notice that there's a slope. Notice that there's a slope to this. Yeah.
Sure.
You'll notice the ratio. Now watch what happens to that line as I move the ratio. So what this is doing is this is saying, how quickly do I want to cram that voice back? And if I set it like all the way over so it's a flat line, it's actually operating as a limit, which means when the sound reaches that level, that's all you get, buddy. And you use a limiter like to protect your speakers. Like if you're looking at your amps and you're setting a limiter on your output over here, and you know when it gets above this level and starts making distortion, you could set a limit so that when your amps clip, your board limits the sound. So that's one use of that. For vocals, we want to use what's called a soft knee compression, which means I don't want to hear that it's compressing my voice, but as I get close to the point where I want it to compress, I want it to begin compressing, and that's why you'll notice we're going to use a slope like this for vocals, somewhere between 2 and 3.5. Now, if you've got Harry Belafonte up there and boy, I mean, he just blows, or Sandy Patty or somebody, you're gonna move that thing over there in the 3.5 to 4 range, because you're gonna have to squash her, because she'll have good mic technique, he'll have good. When they get really loud, they'll use some mic technique. So most of them will help you out on this.
We don't have any of those.
But if you don't have any of those, you're gonna work that compressor. So what you may want to do is actually draw this in some right here, but then notice how the slope is longer. So what it does is it will gradually bring my voice back down.
Where it's hitting over here, that's the limit.
That's exactly right. So what it's doing is it's pushing my vocal range back down to this output level.
The knob that you just turned, I don't know what you just
Right
pushed.
here is the one knob. This is a threshold. This is a threshold.
Okay.
So for a compressor, it's pushing it down. Just think of it trying to keep something from jumping
So
inside.
that knob moves this line over here.
Yes, that.
What you did a second ago was the
That moves
ratio.
the ratio, and notice, like I said,
the inflection point.
right. So the further that I move this over, notice how much longer the top gets, and up here how short it gets. But this is moving. Soft knee just means that it's a gradual rather than just you're too loud. You're too loud. Because that would be like somebody sitting over here just taking this thing down. Like when every time you get too loud, and that's what it would sound like, and you don't want that. That would be if you put that as a limiter and they hit the limit. Okay, so that's it. You're going to set this thing for the person that's too loud, and you have to make your mind up. Okay, where do I want them to be? Like if my output level for my TV or my output level here needs to be at say -12. Like that's where we're going to go. We're going to go -12. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this down until my top notes are actually staying right in that 12 range. So I'm staying pretty consistent there because this is keeping me in that range. So no matter what I do, the output, this is the input, the output is going to stay in that -12 range because that's where I need it to be.
So everything that you've done so far is before it goes to any sends, right?
Right. This is all on the exact channel itself before it goes out. Now you're hearing it as you do it.
Right.
So if you have the house sound on, you'll hear the changes you're making.
So a change there obviously is going to impact what we hear on the TV, but we need to set it to on the front side. We don't need to adjust threshold and all that to what goes to the TV.
Mm-hmm, you will.
So there's multiple layers.
Yeah. So what's happening the way you're doing it right now, which I think we're ultimately going to end up changing this, is like you have your video on bus 3 and 4, so you're actually sending a stereo output bus here. What we're going to do, I believe, unless you guys tell me otherwise, we're going to set a matrix up here so that if I press the select button and I scroll all the way over to the sends, these are my matrices right here, and I can turn the matrix up here. Like if we go down to the bottom level, you'll actually see me on the matrix. It may not be routed yet.
So are you setting?
All I'm doing at that point is I'm just setting the output here that's going to feed the TV. So what this is going to do, like what I just did, is these levels are actually feeding the output of the TV. You can see them right here. But it is a mirror image of your main left and right. So what you hear in the house is exactly what's going to TV. So with this setup, that's the way that would be.
That's what we want.
That's what we need because we're trying to. Before we knew some of these techniques, we're trying to make sure that we don't hear the pastor praying with somebody over there on the house. But then, like, you better remember to turn it off to the video,
exactly.
or else everybody on video is going to hear that.
I wouldn't want that responsibility. The way that you guys have it set up, most churches would have two boards for that. One guy sitting there listening to just the TV mix, and the house guy just listening to the house mix.
Okay.
So you trying to do both is like, it's very brave, but also really tragic most of the time. Because you're running blind.
But to your point, you could do that inexpensively by just getting an iPad.
Absolutely.
And hooking it into here so somebody could sit anywhere.
Right, with a pair of headphones.
With a pair of headphones and an iPad. You don't have to have another board.
Create the mix, right. Same effect.
Yeah.
And that's often what happens up here. Somebody's, no one's assigned, but someone's listening to it. And
the hardest part in the scenario that you guys are doing is that whoever's sitting over there is still hearing the house.
Yeah.
Right.
And
so if you're hearing the house and you're trying to monitor this, you're influenced.
And there's a 30-second
delay.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What we're getting off of the
It's
web.
about a 4 minute.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, your internet
about
that
a 4
slow?
minute. No, with Boxcast, it's about a 4 minute
just
delay
buffers that
because it goes from here to the computer to the Boxcaster to their
Server
and then back.
Right.
So if you
Out-
hear
and then out
something
to Facebook.
on YouTube or Facebook, you're like,
That was 4 minutes ago.
Yeah, you're making it.
Or you don't hear it. Like you realize you get that
Somebody was
feedback
talking
from
and you-
somebody
yeah,
on
the mic went
Facebook.
on.
Yeah, like we can't hear the pastor. They're going to not hear the pastor for 4 minutes before we
Right,
correct
before
And
it.
that's
fix
what
it.
happens
Yeah.
when we're over there doing it. We usually just have, because most people watch Facebook.
Yeah.
So we'll have the Facebook open, but we don't have the sound on or nothing, but we'll have it open watching the comments. And if somebody says, hey, I can't hear, we'll usually tap or get one of their attention, say, hey,
That
point
is
to the phone.
what you guys are doing would be the hardest thing I can ever imagine trying to
4
do.
minutes, I'm halfway done.
I mean,
That
that's the
concludes the
point is you're 4 minutes behind what's actually happening and trying to adjust
That's
it.
where we
So-
really need to probably get somebody with
And that's
that iPad or something.
But they have to hear it in real time in order to
hear it
mix
real
it accurately. Because if you're mixing 4 minutes after the time, you could
But
be
what-
adjusting a solo that's already over.
But hang on, if all right, just like you showed me
Right.
with this little app,
Uh-huh.
that wouldn't be real time.
It would be, but what you're monitoring would be 4 minutes
in
behind
other
it.
words,
When you're watching over there, so what you're
what
hearing
you
is
see
4
and
minutes
hear
late.
is
Right, so you adjust the sound, but you wouldn't hear what you did until 4 minutes later.
So you
That's
said-
where the drama
Okay,
would be.
I see what you're saying. You can hear it and adjust it, but I see what you're
So
saying.
you're,
other words,
you're
when we're
sitting
watching-
in the room adjusting the sound, but you have no feedback.
That's what during complete shutdown. You probably saw me up here once in a while, or Derek. We'd have our earbuds in, just trying to go. Okay, make an adjustment.
But it's always behind.
But it's always behind.
Yeah, that's difficult. That's really difficult. I would suggest you guys go
Yeah,
to
let's
the
do
matrix.
that.
Yeah, that's fine.
That way, what you hear in the house is what they're getting. So
That
when you
suits-
make an adjustment here, even though it's
That's-
4 minutes later, it's already adjusted. You're not trying to chase
That's
an
right.
adjustment.
That's what we want to do.
You got it.
We don't want to build layers.
Right, that gets really. I would not want to have to do that. Okay, so the other thing with the compressor, and let's go back. Check. Let's go back to the channel. So here's the other thing, and this is really cool. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take little Susie Snowflake, who has this little bitty voice, and she's standing next to Wilson over here, who's booming like Belafonte, and we got to make them blend. And you're like, this is never going to happen. How can I do this? So what I'm going to do is I'm now going to be Susie Sunshine. So now I'm going to do something different. I'm going to use a digital gain in my compressor. So I click my view button, so I'm looking at it. You notice the far right knob. What this is going to do is adjust my output. Notice how much louder I got? But now here's the trick. I'm going to take the compressor and I'm going to gain me down. But notice how I'm still loud. Even if I get soft, I'm still loud. See the trick? So I'm loud right here, but I'm loud at this level. But if I get softer, I'm still loud at this same level.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Bingo. There you go. So what that does is that makes your TV mix be consistent. Because that's the biggest thing is people come on and off the mics and they're moving around and the levels are getting nuts. This way it keeps people in that channel that we need them to be in so that your blend is better.
So the whole
You're
stay in
not
your
having-
lane thing, that kind of works for
Exactly.
sound.
That is exactly it. So you're not having to sit down here. Honestly, when I run sound in my setup, I spend time over here EQ and doing all of this. When I run the service, I only run about 4 faders for the whole service because I automate everything by doing what we're doing right now. By setting my compression, by setting my gates, by setting my low cut, I know that my blend is good. The only thing we haven't done is our effects, our pan, and our EQ. And those are the things we're going to go into right now. All right, so I don't need to set that right there because I'm not Susie Snowflake. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and set this back about where I would have it set. I would be right in this range right here, so I'll stay pretty consistent. Now, here's the thing. So we want to look at our EQ. Okay, now these boards are phenomenal in that it has a real-time analyzer. You notice the blue things that are bouncing up in the screen. This was the greatest help for non-musicians that ever could have come out because I could listen to feedback and I could go, hey man, that's 2.5K, you need to pull that down. I'm like, how did you know that? Well, it's kind of the same thing like a keyboard player plays for a minute. They know if it's a major chord or a minor because that's what they're trained to do. You know, you go to school, you learn these things. But for the non-trained guy, he's like, I have no idea what frequency that is. This will show you. Yeah. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a feedback and see. Look at that.
Yeah.
So then what I have to do is I go, oh, that's on the high end of this. So I'm going to go over here, I'm going to press my high button, and I'm going to bring this over right to where that thing was feeding back. Let's do it again. Okay. There we go. And so now I just cut it right out. The reason that took a second is because it was set on the shelving over to. But that's what happened. I went in, and now if I wanted to just pull that very specific frequency down, I could bring this in to be very narrow. And by doing that, I only affected the one frequency that was feeding back.
And that's a Q.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, so but by looking at this, you see what frequencies are too high and too low. So like when I do one, I start off, I'll reset everything so it's flat. I will actually have the person sing or do whatever they're going to do, and then I look at my levels here to see. If I have 4 singers that are just tearing up this middle range right here, I've got to pull that down. And I can do it by either bringing the gate over, so I take some of the boominess out by extending my gate on over, or I may say, well, I want a little bit like I'm a bass singer or something, and I can go to my low, and then I can make the adjustments down here, narrow it up, widen it up, move it left or right. But all I'm doing is I'm trying to affect those frequencies that are standing out too high. And if I listen or look and I'm not getting anything in certain frequencies, like right around this 2K range, I don't seem to have a whole lot going on there, I might actually go into my mid-range and bring this over and boost it up just a little bit and put it right in there, narrow it in until it makes my voice sound better, So whatever I need to do, I'm going to use this as a visual, and I'm going to have somebody singing while I'm making these adjustments. There are certain things that you can just say, okay, I should automatically do anytime there's a singer. So let's go ahead and address some of those. These are things that you traditionally would do as you set up. So let's go ahead and let's just reset all of these back to the beginning point. Okay, the first thing is the low cut. Again, if you're just starting, go ahead and set the low cut and set it somewhere, with the bottom half of that thing being on like 80. Good starting point. The high, I'm going to press the high button, and I'm going to come over here and shelve it. Okay, right there. See what it does right here? See how it cuts that off? And then I'm actually drag this over, because that's about as high up as anybody's going to hear. You'll notice there's really not much going on in my voice. These are overtones that kind of go into there, but things that are up into that range are generally just going to create feedback. So this would be like pretty much of a starting point. Now for me, I would say, as we're getting ready to sing, go on and bring that over and take some of that out. The other thing is I'm still kind of boomy in the 250 range, so I'm going to hit low, mid. I'm going to bring that down, and I'm going to start dialing out some of that boominess in my voice, and try to make it sound a little bit smoother. And I may say, well, I really need to add like some mid-highs so I get a little bit more of a natural tone. So I would go in maybe and boost that a little bit. But I'm doing it because I'm looking at what my range is, and so I want to have a pretty even balance between the low and the high end. And so that's
You kind of want to have an even bars across the open segment. Is that?
Yeah. Now, obviously, if I'm doing pink noise, like let's see if I can.
What noise?
Yeah, pink noise. I'll show you.
Don't do
I'll show
that.
you this. So if I press this.
We don't do that in the Baptist church.
Oh, you don't do pink noise in there. So let's go to the left and right mains. All right. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna send this out here, and I can turn this on. Oh, it's not on that channel. There we go. I'll just like this so I can see it.
It's raining hard.
Let me see it. They're here. Exactly. Ah, there we go.
Sounds great.
Exactly what you want to hear, right?
This is my childhood trying to watch the Braves. Before we had cable.
All right, so you can see the level right there. This is what your house system, this is where it's strong, like in this range right through here. This is where it's kind of weak, is down in this area. So if I were going to equalize this room, if I'm doing a pink noise for the room, I'm going to come down here around 80 hertz to 200 hertz. I'm going to boost it up a little bit so I get a flat response across. But we're basically doing the same thing with the voices. But there again, we're trying to get the voices to fit a certain range that we want. They're not going to be all the way across. Now I did that in reaching out to this is by touching this in my monitor section, scrolling all the way over to the oscillator, and then I turned it on. Now I can turn it off. Now you say, well, why in the world would you ever want to do that? Because by using this button right here, I can go in and turn like you have monitors on, what are you, choir wedge right here on 5. So if I scroll this down to 5, select it, that's your choir wedge. So if you wanted to equalize the choir wedge, you could put a mic down there on the stage pointed at the choir wedge, use that EQ section again by looking at it here, cranking it on up on whatever mic was sitting in front of it, and you would see what your choir wedge is doing to be able to flatten the EQ on that.
Okay.
Very, very helpful when you're trying to do a quick, we have to do mixes oftentimes where the performer says, just going to get all my mics hot, let's do a line check and we'll walk in and rehearse later. Well, I know I need to make everything basically not feedback when he walks in the room, so I have to put live mics in front of the monitors and I'll run that pink noise at them so that I know that my monitors are set flat to start with. So the feedback's not going to come from anything other than something that's just too hot that I can then make minor adjustments. I'm not having to make major adjustments. So again, just quick referral again. So I want to be able to bring, let me grab my mic here. So again, I want to be able to.
What was just picking you up?
This mic was down here. Because I didn't mute my mic when I was doing all of that.
Okay. It seemed maybe you've reached, because it seemed like you were holding it way far away from where you were earlier.
Oh, because I had it just for Susie Snowflake. That's why it was still picking me up so good, because I had the bottom gain jacked up and compressed it. So as she pulls off the mic, it stayed more consistent. Yeah. So that's the advantage of that little Susie Snowflake gain structuring. So again, what I generally do is I'll start off by taking the bottom of this down to 80, and I'll roll my high end off, and then I make my adjustments in the mid range as I'm looking at the blue. So that's just kind of a starting point for vocal mics.
Okay.
Okay, so that's how we do our equalization. We're gonna skip this because we use sends on faders. I saw you guys do it. This can be very confusing. Analog guys like this because you can select 1 through 4, looking at your monitors here. And let's see.
Wilson, we gotta know this for over there. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll notice that we're moving the faders there. I don't know why those aren't. They're normally synced together. I guess they're not set. Okay. In the setup, it's fine. This one actually, if you're looking at the channel, this is going to move. When you press the 1 through 4, these 4 should correspond to these right here, but they're not. They're not linked.
Okay.
They should be linked, but they're not linked.
So this is sending
That is sending to here.
to here.
But what should be happening, and these are obviously not linked, is like when I move this for bus 1 and 2, that light should be moving down and up. And when I turn this knob, those should be moving up and down as well.
That's what comes out?
This, so let me state it in a way that I think we're going to.
Because I never have understood what bus meant.
Okay,
Sorry.
so a bus just means it's a group of things coming out of one channel. So let's just use a real life example. So I select bus 1. Let's do your choir wedge. Much better example. Okay, so I select the choir wedge. You're like, how do I know what's going to the choir wedge? So when I select sends on faders, Everything that is now turned up over here is feeding that fader.
That's how we couldn't get the choir into the choir wedge that day.
No, I thought we knew that.
Yeah, so that's it. So you select whatever you're wanting to adjust, and when you do sends on faders, this side of the board now flips to feed just the one that you have selected.
Yeah.
So anything that I move over here is going to now send on that one. Now if I go to bus 6, notice how they jump. Now my sends on fader is going to adjust everything that goes to whatever the band wedge is.
Band wedge, yeah.
Yeah, but
Which is
notice
the
when
small ones.
right, but when I go back, notice how it jumps. So
Like-
so they actually have different mixes.
So if you go to the in-ear mic, left and right,
You would be able to just like when you turned your phone sideways and you were able to adjust them all. That's it. So like honestly,
this should be, I just
Yeah.
want to try it out. This should,
you should. So let's put me in that mic. I actually am. I think. Yeah, I'm on solo 1 right here. So you should hear me loud and clear on that. If this is good after we unmute it. Check. You should hear me fine. Yeah. So you just got to make sure it's obviously unmuted, and I can boom it up there a little bit, and then you have gain structure there, and you should be able to adjust it. Yeah. So log on and take my mic on that solo 1 over here and turn me off. You can just pull it down, and it should cut me right off. Yep.
it sure is. So like my mic is 12, which would be,
There's a small one.
1, 2, 3, yeah, so that's loud right here.
So you can just pull it down on your phone.
Sweet.
Yep. And then just make the adjustment.
There's a small one next to it. That's the band wedge.
You are a rocket scientist now.
I am.
So this is super important. This is the one thing that people got so confused, and I fell into the same camp that when I'm running sound, I don't necessarily pay attention to blinking lights. But if that light is blinking, you are not running the live sound. You're running the monitors. So I just tell all my sound guys, listen, if that's blinking, it's monitors. If it's not, your house. Because I have had so many people call me during the church service, and I'm up there playing my guitar and singing, and my phone's just going off like crazy, and I step off out of the stage, and I'm like, what's going on with it? They're like, man, I can't get anything to do right in the house. Everything, they keep saying I'm messing with their heads up there because they got in-ear monitors. It's like, all I'm doing is, I said, do you have a red light flashing? Yeah, that one in the middle. Push the button. Oh, that fixed it, man. We got it now. Yeah, that's it.
So quick question to build on of like this in-ear stuff. The PS, what do you call it? P16?
Piece S16.
Where are they
P16.
feeding out of?
So they come off of a separate port by themselves.
And
they're-
every one is controlled by itself.
Yes, that has nothing to do with the board feed. Now,
Right.
you can send things to the board that you can adjust. Like the worship pastor that we had, he used in-ears. He wanted to be able to adjust his overall volume level on his ears, but he didn't want to have to fool with the mix because he's like, I can't slide and adjust things. I just want to be able to tell you during rehearsal, hey, I need more bass, I need more guitar, I need whatever. And I could do, because I set up his P16 mix on one knob on the P16. So I would say P16, 16 knob is actually bus 5.
But like for Blake that plays drums, when we hook that in, I mean, it's hooked in. When he turns it on, independent of whatever these guys are doing there, he should be able to
Yes,
control it.
he
should
can
say,
absolutely do it,
all I
yeah.
want to hear is Wilson's voice in the guitar. Or
Exactly.
whatever. And
On his inner ear.
yes.
Yeah, so if you go to the routing and you scroll over to the P16, this tells you what's on what. So
No, we have the capability.
actually, he doesn't have any of these set. So if he's doing it, and oh yeah, no, there it is. Couldn't see. Put my glasses on so I can see what I'm doing. So you'll notice like P16 1 is set for bass, or 2 is set for bass. 1 isn't set for anything. 2 is bass, 3 is acoustic guitar, 4 is whatever that is, acoustic I guess, and 5 is electric, 6 is piano. So this is one of the things that happens a lot is they're like, hey, what is on knob number 6? I have no idea. That's how you find out. You just go to routing over to P16 and they can say, where is keys? And you can go, oh, keys is on 7. Nothing's on 8. Number 2, bass you're on knob number 2. And you can move those around as well. Like if somebody says, hey, I want bass to be on channel 1, I could go up to here and then I could go down to my output and I could grab direct out of wherever the bass channel is, push that button in, and then that's going to route to 1. Like right now there's nothing on 1. So if I wanted to put my solo 2 mic right here, I could go to channel 14 direct out, and it's now solo 1 on volume knob number 1 down on his P16.
Okay.
So there was nothing on that. I'm gonna turn it back off, but
You a portable piece like that too.
But that's how you add something that's here to the P16, is you just do routing, P16, and then these are the knobs. You have 16 knobs, and then over here on the right is what you're gonna route to that knob.
Okay.
And then it'll show up, once it's assigned, you'll notice as we go down, you know, the assignment shows up underneath there. And what these assignments are gonna be, like over here, you're gonna just see, say, channel 14, well, then it's gonna say solo 1 here, so it would show up solo 1 there.
I understand.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Let's see. Okay, direct channel out. Okay. I'm
Yep.
with you.
And you can do the same thing with Matrix or anything that you want to route up to it. Like often is the case with some of the bands that I've run sound for, they're like, we want you to run our loops for us, and I'm going to cue you in to start the loop. So what I would do is I would hook the loop into, you know, one of my aux channels down here, and then I would take their knob number 16 and I would route it to my aux 5 so that when I start it, they can hear it in their ears up on stage.
Like a
But
click.
yeah,
that
click and
nobody
loop.
else hears.
Right, click and loop. We do that all the time. So we'll have like click on this channel, loop on that. So the click is